Okay. All right. We're now live on Facebook and YouTube. We're going to bring in Julie Dhara Roberts, the Mythology scientist. Or we have to think of a better name than that. We're going to put on the intro, let people come in, and see you in about a minute and a half. Here we go. How's it going, everybody? We got Julie Dhara Roberts in the house, and we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about Pleiades. So let me get her up here. All right, let's see. There we go. Welcome everybody on YouTube, Facebook. Okay, there you are. Hello.
Hi, Todd. Hi, everyone.
What's happening? What's going on?
Excited to be here with you today. This made my I tell you.
Right on. What yeah, first I got to say it's good to see you. Thank you for showing up every day. I love that show you and Hung did. I love when you said well, you were talking about light code birthing in the form of, in your case, triplet dragons, right? And
I've had multiple. I can't say.
Oh, you've had multiple.
It was I've had, the first one was Sasquatch. Those triplets were Sasquatch.
Oh, that's right. Right. Okay. And then okay, so that was my point. So the light code birthing, which you've experienced Sasquatch in other ways, other people, dragons, people were talking about, and there was a lot of comments on that show. But I loved what you said when you said, I'm coming out with this because there's other women and men out there that are having this experience. And I went, whoa. And then I was watching the comments and people were like, oh, I birthed a dragon egg. And so it's a real deal. And I thought, wow, that's really ballsy. That's really cool that this is why she's doing it. And you were even talking about how it took you a while to get there, right? Like you'd known Hung for like 3 years and you couldn't even talk about it to her for a while, like you, so that was a big deal. I thought energetically that was a really big deal. And I thought, wow, this is the part of the new frequency. This is part of what I would, support or envision that Soulspeaks is a platform for, is sharing that type of information because it's real, so I just want to say thanks for that. And yeah, you're welcome. Yeah. And so now this thing about the Pleiades cluster, the Pleiades star cluster, this came into my field. This is not a coincidence, right? This came into my field like 2 days ago. And I don't even know why, right? I mean, I know I have this thing with Aldebaran, right? I don't know if I say it right, but Aldebaran.
You can say it however you want. Aldebaran is how other people say it, but you say it how you want.
Aldebaran, something like that. So I have this thing that's been obvious to me since about 1.5 years ago. And it goes Sirius, Aldebaran, Pleiades. And like they would follow me when I was in Hawaii. It started with Sirius in Houston, and then I started to say, "What's that star?" And then the Pleiades, which is to me got like Morgan written all over it, and the feminine, or I don't know what's happening. But then I researched it, and Aldebaran was the eye of the bull, of the eye of Taurus. And something I had read was talking about the galactic history, but it was talking about it in a way that was not just strictly energy. So there was some mythology, there was the pattern, the actual locations of the planetary and celestial beings, and then there was the storyline. And it was basically kind of like, okay, the in this part of the universe, everything kind of got congregated, like it came out of Orion, and some other stuff happened, I think, but then it kind of got consolidated in Sirius, almost like the way I saw it, or the way I kind of processed it was, we all came there, whoever came there, all these different representatives from all over the multiverses. What's the mission? Here we go. This is kind of a hub, in other words. And then it went to, or maybe I went to, maybe I resonated with, Aldebaran was keeping an eye on the Pleiades, and the Pleiades was kind of another congregation or sub-congregation of the boots on the ground, who was going, like we're the ones that are going to take this direct, which of course lines up with, like the Maori and the Dogon tribe and some of the other indigenous and native. Anyway, so they came into my field, or re-established itself in my field again 2 days ago. And then I just saw this post you put up. So what is that? What's going on with the Pleiades cluster? What does it mean? Tell us all about it.
Pleasure. So which of your points? So we'll do the first one first. You're talking about if you were traveling for a long journey or through a desert, you would have different way stations. We would stop and either refuel, or I'm sure you've driven that area down by Las Vegas where you're like, no gas stations for 110 miles, fuel up now.
Speed limit 200.
Yeah. So energy, light codes, star beings, traveling through the galaxies, through the universe, like how I see it is like our galaxy didn't start as a big bang, but imagine like all the energy of our galaxy into a point at the center of the galaxy, and then it like spreading out, right? And so we're in a spiral galaxy. So we think that the spiral arms, like everything you just described, is in the Orion arm, or Orion spur of the Milky Way galaxy. So like those places, if you can think of mythological beings traveling through a continent, or if you think of star races traveling through the universe, you'd stop at these way stations. And so as you just described it, Sirius, our branch of the Milky Way, or our arm, spiral arm, is named Orion spur because Orion is one of the more dominant. So almost like you can think of them a lot of different ways, almost like layering or different dimensions you travel through, but like you go through the Orion cluster and you go through, but our local arm, they call it, like one of the closer things to us is the Pleiades. The Hyades is another star cluster that's associated with Aldebaran. And then all the things that you just named were coolly in the Orion arm of the Milky Way. So I feel like, and I can tag it under this when we're done. I have several blog posts written up about this thing. But that like the codes get exchanged or they get delivered here along the way, or like each of the star clusters is like a way station where we might stop and take a break and refuel. And, so some of this is from like star codes coming from the source of all, the great central sun and coming through. So that's like, it's cool that you named so I hear from those clusters and stars. I think we all do here on planet Earth or here in the solar system, because they're our local, they're our buddies. You hear more from your neighbors. You can hear your neighbor cutting down a tree more than you could hear someone, in Texas, me. I'm far from Texas, but like you hear things from your neighbors more. So all those star groups you named are our neighbors.
Yeah.
So that's one thing, a big thing, but we'll benchmark that. And the other thing you asked about is like, why 2 days ago did the Pleiades pop back into your field? So I was so delighted when Morgan reached out to me to schedule me for the show, and she gave me this whole series of dates, and I was like, May 22nd, yeah, that's the day, because I could do the actual show on this day. So we have a bunch of stuff astronomically aligned today. So it's a new moon, and that means like the moon is with the sun in the sky, so it's not, we can't see it there, but both the sun and the moon are in Taurus right now, right near Aldebaran. And so the sun is conjuncting the Pleiades today. So meaning it caught up with it. The sun and the Pleiades are next to each other in the sky.
So that's what conjunction means. It means they're like abutted to each other, basically.
Yeah. So the path where all the stars and planets, mostly, not all the stars, the planets and the sun travel is called the ecliptic. So the sun, the planets move in relation to each other. So it's like when they catch up with each other on this orbital path. It's because the solar system is more like a plane. Anyway, that's a lot. We see it in one predictable path. So the signs of the zodiac that are along this ecliptic are the ones that the sun passes through. So the sun goes through Taurus. Now the astrological houses and the constellations are different and different things. I mean, they're the same, but they're different like sections of the pie, if you will. Yeah. But right now in the sky, the sun, the moon, and the Pleiades are all hanging out right next to each other.
The sun, the moon, and Pleiades. Okay.
And then in one of the horns of the Taurus, the bull, Venus and Mercury are conjuncting also.
Sounds like a rave.
All that. It's a star party.
But what does that mean to us? I mean, it sounds pretty cool. It sounds.
Yeah, it's
powerful.
Really super. I personally it's super interesting of like what it means, because for me, I'm shown or I see for myself for research, or I'm just like looking at the alignments for the year when I did that at the beginning. And the last time I was graced enough to come here on Soulology and talk to you, we were moving towards the April, like I was talking a lot about the Venus and Pleiades conjunction last time we were together. And I had no idea. I knew it was going to be like diamond coated. And I think I remember talking to you about the squeeze, right? And I had no idea that the squeeze was going to be quite so squozy, like we're all in right now, like, so I don't really predict.
Well, you got that right.
Yeah.
But but I forgot about that. Now I remember, and I remember what the climate was like too. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the times one of the times, but that was when I started hearing, and I probably heard it, I don't want to exaggerate, but I probably heard it like, 4 or 5 times on shows that I did in that time period. And I would ask people, what do you think this is gonna, okay. So they would say, I knew this was gonna happen. But I didn't know it was going to be like this. And all of them, and it was the frequency of it. I mean, all of them, it like took them to this level of humility. Like, oh my, like they were just like, whoa, I had no idea it was going to look like this. And of course they were speaking of the energetics.
Yeah. Right. So today, I've been contemplating that, what you just asked me too. So I saw that beginning of April was going to have that squeeze effect from the astrological alignments. And I'm not one to like cast forward and see like what it's going to do to humanity or what it's going to do to me. Like I'm more of an experiencer. So like I want to move through the gateway because I don't want to come in with preconceived notions, right? Because it's like, who knows what's going to happen. So I've been this week for sure on purpose connecting with all this. Like, so having that knowledge of the star alignments, what does it mean? So this is what I've been shown, or my higher self is showing me, or the stars directly are showing me too, that there are different phases of light body activation, or different geometrical constructs that govern different multidimensional aspects of the light body. So we just talk about the Pleiades in general, like the sun conjuncting the Pleiades. For me, that's let's take a look at the mythology of the Pleiades. And if we go through a lot of different native cultures, or Aboriginal tales, the oral traditions that were passed down about the Pleiades star cluster, they're from Greek, or did you see Close Encounters of the Third Kind way back in the day? Yeah. That like the devils
Yes.
The thing he was that he was drawn to.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a big tale about the
Now,
Pleiades,
where was that? That was in
Wyoming,
the. Okay, that's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Devil's Tower.
yeah.
So
Devil's
there's
Tower. Yeah.
Uluru
Yes. Yeah.
in Australia. Like,
Mm.
so a lot, if we can go to Peru and get a different thing. So all these indigenous cultures have mythology and tales around the Pleiades. And the thing that was shown to or that pointed itself out to me reading all these various tales is that they're all stories of women, usually, or girls. A couple
Yeah.
of them are brothers, but they're
Yeah.
these seven sisters, and
Yeah.
they're in some kind of peril. Either Orion the Hunter is chasing them to eat them, or a bear is chasing them to eat them, or something, Zeus wants to, wrap his ginormous penis around them all, or there's all these tales of things that are
There is. I
happening.
read some of that
Yeah,
though.
yeah.
There
A
was
lot of
some of
them
that.
are
Yeah.
there's the seven sisters are in peril, and to save them, either the dad or Zeus or whoever the savior person in the mythology is, turns them into stars to save
Mm,
them from the human peril that they're in.
mm,
So to me, I was like, wait, this is a tale of turning on your star body, turning on your star light body,
yeah.
becoming a star. When I was a
Yes.
kid, my favorite book that I must have read till it was dog-eared and worn, and I listened to it on audio, was A Wrinkle in Time. And that book by Madeline Lee Engel, was so pivotal to me. It was tesseracts and time travel, but it was
Wow.
also talked about these three ladies that were these witches, but they had been stars, but took human form. And then from their human form, they were really their souls, their spirits were stars.
Yeah.
So to me, what's going to happen today, that alignment of Venus with the Pleiades, to me, I saw it governing now, especially in hindsight, that it was governing more the diamond light body kind of
Mm.
activation phase for our collective. But here we're in the Merkaba, the light fields, the spinning. So the interlocking tetrahedron, which are triangular pyramids. Imagine a cube, not a cube, but a pyramid that had four sides that were all
Yeah.
triangles, and one points upward and one points downward, and they move and interlock together,
Yeah.
and they spin. So for some people, this is shown, and I know for your wife Morgan, when I read her articles or her sharings, and she talks about the divine union of the masculine and feminine,
Hmm.
I translate it into my star-coded head as
Yeah.
oh, she's talking about the Merkaba, the
Yeah.
upward flow, the downward flow, this union quality. And what we saw, a lot of us, for the 2020 was
Yeah.
I always say it wrong, but Venica Pisces, the two
Vesica.
circles coming to Visca.
Yeah. Vesica Pisces. Yeah.
It's a similar energy of
Yeah.
the integration and the
Yeah.
oneness.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That is. And she said the other day. She said it before, but she was talking about creation. And again, it's like you're talking about. It's like you're seeing it this way, or she wrote it that way, but it's energy. And she said the first thing that happens is the plasma, and then from the plasma, I guess the thought, the whatever that force is, the plasma, then is a geometry. Like geometry is framing up everything, just like you were saying. And I remember reading about when I researched Aldebaran. Aldebaran. I can't say it the way they
just
say it.
say it however you want. We're
That's right.
we're in the freedom codes, dude. Say
But
it however you want.
freedom codes. But I remember reading about it because I couldn't understand, why am I seeing this star? And she's like Pleiades to me. I look at not that there's another one. There's another constellation that's on her leg that comes into play. I can't remember the name of it, but so the thing about the Aldebaran was, when I woke up, I had these many dimensional third eye, whatever you want to call it, experiences with this brotherhood, right? And the brotherhood, there were six teachers that came into my field and spent a couple of weeks with me, each one of them. And there was a mountain that I would meet them on. right? And each one of them was at a different level of the mountain, right? But the planet that the mountain was on was like this reddish brown color, like Sedona, like Australia, right? The interior of Australia. And I kept saying, "Oh, that's where I'm from. That's orangish planet, you know." And then I go to read about Aldebaran, and that's what the color of it is, right? It's like this really big star, but the mythology of it was keeping an eye on the Seven Sisters, and somehow or another that resonated. And so then when I saw it pop back up these last couple of days, and now you're mentioning this, this is leading to something. I guess that's all I was trying to get to. But something's going on there, you know. Something's happening.
Yeah. Should we talk a little bit maybe about star codes and reading star codes?
Whatever
like
you can
I think
educate us on. What did we say you were going to? You're not the Solji scientist. There was another word we used for it. I can't remember what it was. But anyway, go for it. Yes.
Well,
somebody said you're a wonderful teacher, Julie. Definitely a star.
Aw. Thanks, friend, whoever that was. I know it's hard to read the comments while we talk, right? But you're better at that than I am.
Yeah.
But thanks to everybody. So the first thing I want to say is, just to you personally, Todd, is you might want to investigate the Hyades. So the
I looked
are like
at
the brothers of the Pleiades.
Okay, because I do remember seeing that.
So they're
yeah, I do remember.
I can send you pictures too, like the Hyades cluster. Again, I'm Italian. I talk with my hands.
You're Italian. I didn't know you were Italian. Spaghetti, lasagna. But I remember that because there's Beetlejuice is there, Aldebaran.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'll look into that. Educate us.
Yeah. Well, so it was good. I've had to really carve out time from my family way that I'm in right now. But I did write up 2 articles today. Yeah. One is about star codes and like what's the difference between star codes and light codes. And the other one was about the geometries of the different aspects or phases of the light body. Wow. So I could talk about it now, but then I wanted to have articles ready to go to share with people.
Right on. Now, is this on your Inner Space page or your page or both?
Yeah. So I have a Facebook page.
Yeah.
That's called Inner Space. I have a website and I do a lot of blogging, a lot of free stuff, a lot of articles, a lot of information.
Wow.
So it's innerspacehealing.org.
Yeah, I definitely want you to educate us on this. I just want to give a little backdrop because some people may not be familiar with you, even though you've been on a few times. Sure. But you've always had this pursuit, as evidenced by that favorite book of yours, right? You've always had this pursuit in the cosmos, scientifically and otherwise. I guess where I'm going with this, just to get a little bit more of a feel for it, you're like you're like the bibliography in a big thick book. You've got all these reference points. How much of it are you? I know you pull from Infinite Intelligence. It's a mix, isn't it? You research a lot, and you also because I can tell by the way you talk and the things you talk about and the range of the things you talk about, you must tune in, I would imagine, constantly.
So now in hindsight, I'd say the first time I started talking or was communicating with light beings or star beings, it's like I can remember being 2 or 3. And as a kid, I had a very rich tapestry of imaginary friends that they were called when I was a kid. Like lots of people that I would communicate with. And they never showed like in corporal form and body form, but they were always these like columns of light or these beings. And they would always, and I would talk with them even like out loud. I would have long dialogues they were like my constant companions probably till high school. Mm-hmm. And I figured out that was weird, or like I couldn't walk the halls of high school, or I could have, but talking to star beings and whatnot. But I think that communication, but now in hindsight, then I was like, well, I was just that weird kid having imaginary friends, but they never like introduced themselves as like star elders or any of that. It was just this like direct communication pathway that I've always had.
Wow.
And this is so cool. When you like follow your spidey senses, like I knew my phone was going to ring with a telemarketer, or maybe that's the star elders calling us right now. I was like, take your phone off the hook, Julie, when you're on Mythology with Todd. Anywho, they're calling to say, yes, talk about this.
There you go. And Wendy just put up a comment about it too. She shared that star code post.
Oh, thanks, Wendy.
She says you're so tuned in. So what is the difference between star code and light code?
Yeah, so I think we as a collective, as light workers, use the term light code for stuff that comes from the sun. Like I think we can all like realize that sun has encoded rainbow rays to it when it shines through a prism. It has these certain qualities, and maybe some of us will connect with our crystals or our Andaras, or you can, some of us use like the eyelashes as kind of like a filtration. You can see the rainbow rays shining off the, you know, a building or a skyscraper. Like we are familiar with light codes
Yeah.
that are from our local star, which Solaris or the sun. And most of like light working, we talk about light from the sun. So star codes are basically the same thing. They're just from these stars that are so far away that they don't show up to us like the sun, and we don't interact with them the same way because of their travel through time and space. You know, they're in the night sky. So, you know, we connect with Solaris with the heat and the, you know, different, you know, day and night, all that. But with, you know, say we'll use Aldebaran since we're talking about him a lot. Like the codes from a star show up, I think, to a light worker, grid worker, gatekeeper, just a little bit differently. They're more subtle because it's like that pinpoint on the night sky.
Yeah.
And yeah, but yet they're the same because all light is encoded information.
Yeah.
Right. So
that's interesting.
that answer?
Huh?
Like the short answer is they're the same thing.
No, I mean that's very
star...
no. This is what you were like taking us through, because I have many times, because everybody's sun gazed one time or another, but and I've seen some pretty incredible things happen where I'm like going, did that just happen? You know, like the sun would have like almost like when you look at Earth and you see the different continents, they had like these blue things moving around, and I was sitting there staring at it, and all of a sudden they exploded, and all this pink, like a pink, like you know, what do you call it, a mushroom, like from a explosion, like it just came right at me, you know. And I did it like 4 or 5 times, and I was like, I can't be imagining this.
That's downloading light codes.
But then the star thing. So when I remember about 2 weeks ago, I came out, and I always know when it's going on because I have Sky Map on my phone, but I don't come out and go, oh, where's everybody? No, but I came out the back door, and I didn't see it, but I felt it. I went, Arcturus, you know, and I looked over, and there was this big star, and it was, you know, and I said, so I pulled out the Sky Map, and sure enough, it was that. So when I look at them, and to me, because my human mind's like going, oh, you're just, you know, but when I look at them, it doesn't happen right away, but if I stare at it long enough, the light columns or code or whatever you want to call that will eventually come to me, right? Like it'll make its way, and then there's a connection, and then I start, you know, whatever happens from there. But that's what you're talking about.
Yeah,
it just comes in different.
Yeah, the star code communication or star code download is exactly what you just described, and I enjoy the quality of letting it happen organically, just like you said. It's like I think for a lot of us, like the people that we get woken up at night by a certain star, either alignment, or it's like you can feel it in your window or see it through your window. Or I notice like when I go and look, I'm like, oh, it's the like whatever's rising on the horizon or setting over there, and like we're getting this information mostly at night, all night long, and a few of the pings of information are so strong that they like wake us up from a sound sleep and sometimes take us out onto our lawns or balconies to commune with. But in general, just like talking to stars or communicating, listening to stars does come as just as you described. It can be like laying out a blanket on the lawn. Ancient cultures would always have these stargazing rocks where they would like, you know, they would comfortably hold their bodies, you know, or maybe they'd put a pelt down, or who knows. I'm sure rocks aren't the most comfy, but like just to lay there and to look at the stars, and they communicate in these really cool ways. Especially Sirius, because we talked about Sirius. Sirius is like is a disco ball. It's like this
man. Sirius is Sirius is the first one that ever showed itself to me.
Yeah, and it's when they kind of turn on to talk to you. It's this like it's a dance. The Hyades, which is what like we could talk about more. Like that was the first star cluster. They're kind of shaped like a V, almost like the Star Trek insignia. And they were started to like, they move and groove and like in relation to each other, but you kind of blink and you're like, is that really happening? Like what you said, like, is that,
I'm gonna
or
have to check
stars?
those out. I
Because
think
the
I know.
physical stars aren't necessarily moving, but they kind of like glitter and dance to get our attention.
Hmm.
And that's, and stars themselves can move and morph and pulse and spin and do all kinds of things that, for myself, I'll give one example. One night I was out doing this and I could see this area that I was like, something was like active in the night sky, but it was a dark part of the sky. It wasn't a part that I'm used to seeing, or used to seeing stars in that area. It's near Orion. Like you were talking about that, the Sirius, Orion, Betelgeuse,
Mm-hmm.
that area.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to, and it ruins your night vision to pull your phone out, right? So I like to like let the organic waves, because you asked me how much is intuitive or connection and how much is research.
Yeah.
So I like to just like have the experience while I'm having it.
Hmm.
And then after I go inside, or then I do the research later, to back up what I feel or sense. But this was one thing I could really see. And then when I went to research it and I was looking at where it was, so this time I did go get my phone and I was looking at my star map and going back and forth. I use Sky Safari, by the way, because people ask me that a lot. But I looked and it was the Christmas Tree Nebula. It was in Monoceros, which is the constellation of the unicorn, which at this time, this was like 3 or 4 years ago, I was like, I didn't even know we had a unicorn constellation. I spent my whole life looking at stars. I was like, there's a unicorn up there?
Yeah.
So then I was researching that, because it's pretty dim. Like it's not like Cassiopeia or Orion or, the other ones that are more visible. So I was like, and it said in my things, like, you're not supposed to be able to see it with the naked eye. I'm like, okay, but it showed itself to me in the night sky. And it's right there where, it was like the Rosette Nebula. So things can like, it's almost like your eyes get better.
Like when you go into, you come in from outside and you go into a dark room and you know what I mean? Or you turn the lights off and you can't really see. And then the more time that passes, you can start to see, like whatever the effect of the light in your eyes, you can start to see more clear like that.
Yeah. So the light codes come and they bypass the human brain, luckily, and they really interact with your DNA, with your cells are encoded too. So there's a photonic like light encoded activation thing that happens by looking at the sun, by looking at the stars. And luckily for all of us, like I think we all like to know more and intellectualize a little bit of it, but it's happening in your light body. It's happening in your energy body, whether your mind has the story to go along with it or not.
Are the stars, especially these local ones, right? Are they going through the same transformation we are, in your opinion?
What year? Yes, absolutely. And so really, like, what is a star? It's a broadcaster of light. So one way to think about planetary ascension, and this is well defined in the Vedas, the ancient tales or myths or whatever, scriptures from India and the Hindu and Tibetan zone, is that, so we're in the solar system and we're traveling around the galaxy, right? And that spiral arm I talked about at the beginning is rotating around. And this goes back to the point you made about the plasma and the sacred geometry parts too, that we're moving through these different, so there are these cycles of time, yugas or epics, where there are parts of that, like, so imagine we have to do a full circle, and that circle takes 250 million years for the solar system to move around the full diameter of the galaxy, or make a complete loop.
God.
And
how many lives have we had in 250 million years?
Yeah. So in that section, there are parts of the space-time fabric, parts of the universe that have more light streams, or they're called cosmic streams, or these areas of just like superhighways of stars and light codes. And there are areas that are darker that just don't have as much content in them. So of like the yugas where they talk about the dark ages, or the Kali Yuga, that's a time where our solar system and thereby our planet is in one of those parts of the trip around the galaxy that
So
is
when so
less
when
light
that
encoded.
okay, so when we had the Dark Ages, which I find absolutely fascinating in and of itself, because I'm a history buff, but
Mhm.
there's like this period of time where not only did things just suddenly like change, but there's like this period of time where there's no information, right? There's just like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
you're saying that was a period, in that period, that we were interfacing with something that was reflecting that type of energy.
No, no,
No,
it's not dark energy per se.
no,
It's
I don't
just
mean
the
dark. I just mean
absence
like,
of.
yeah, like there's not a lot of info there compared to other places.
So these cycles or this planetary ascension is when we come to a giant like cosmic stream that is full plasma encoded with all these different things. Like we're
Mm-hmm.
moving through different areas of the universe or of the multiverse that have just more light codes in them.
Yeah,
Like they're almost like when you drive, you drive cross country a lot. I have
yeah,
too. And there are those areas like there's just no towns, there's just no
yeah,
light. It's just dark, right? It's like
yeah,
there's nothing bad going on there. It's just like there's not a lot of
yeah,
civilization or not a lot of infrastructure.
yeah.
Same kind of thing in the cosmos. Like there's parts of
Wow.
the galaxy that just have less of that. So
Yeah,
we're like driving the. So you asked the question, and I went off on a tangent. It's like, is it happening to the stars and the planets and the.
yeah,
So I believe, or what I feel, is that the stars, the sun, all this is like they're rebroadcast stations where they're rebroadcasting some of the source codes, and they get these boosts. Like what planetary ascension is, we're moving through this star-coded, star-studded field that has all this extra stuff. So I'll say this to honor her teachings and not to name drop, but like Sandra Walter talks about it when I first heard her say in one of the first classes I did with her years and years ago, when she's like, yeah, we move through this band that's geometrically encoded.
yeah.
I was like, yes, that's exactly what's happening. So there's some parts of it that are like we have these different geometries that do different things to the electromagnetic field
Mm.
of your energy body and to the light body
It's
itself.
fascinating how this is all connected. It's fascinating. So on one
Isn't it?
hand, yeah, the one thing that always kind of throws me off or had kind of challenged me was the pattern. So I'm like, okay, I'm watching this. How do I know that's not just an overlay? And if it is an overlay, that's not necessarily a bad thing. But like, are we at, are the stars leading us? I saw this quote the other day by Manly P. Hall, and he said something like, a man is not led by the stars, but a man leads the stars, or something like that. And that's what I was trying to get to. I was like, can do I have to stay in this template? But I guess what you're bringing to the table is that they're not like dictating us, but they are saying this is the energy that's available right now. This is what's running, running amok. This is what's out there. Like if we're in that phase where was not a whole lot of stuff out there, like you're talking about driving cross country, there's just not a lot of stuff going on. Doesn't mean you can't expand, doesn't mean anything. It just, so it's kind of like a weather report.
Right. Or you can drive through Las Vegas and you get lights in your face. Like,
Right. No,
like
I'm not going back there. We
no,
passed
but
through.
like the difference between
No,
that
no,
and
I
the
know, I know.
prairie,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah,
So this like, so you asked, let's go back to the question of is like, it's happening to us.
yeah.
So we're all microcosm, macrocosm, right? So your being, like you are a star
Mm-hmm.
also. So that's, you have the ability to activate that section or that aspect of your light body that is your Merkaba. So the Mer is the light or those spinning tetrahedrons I was talking about. The Ka is spirit and the Ba sometimes body or soul. So it's
Mm-hmm.
your light body vehicle. And that, so that's, and going back to the Vedas, when yoga, I'm 20 years into like yoga teaching and training. And when yoga theory started getting super interesting for me was when they started talking about cosmology and the origins of the universe and all this stuff that we would talk about now as like new age stuff is
Mm-hmm.
well laid out in the Vedas.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the light body vehicle of ascension is called the Vimana. And they would talk about these like light ships. So a lot of these like visitations and activations, it's like you have the ability, it's like your own personal starship, spaceship, your Merkaba you can activate, turn on, and travel interdimensionally
Yes.
to any time, space, planet, anywhere you want, timeline, anywhere you want to
So
go.
the visitations, you know, when you're having like Morgan and I have, like when you're having an experience and there's a physicality or a visual or a, you know, apparition or whatever you want to call it, is that, why is that occurring? Is it because some things have been activated within our field? Is there a relation to it? I mean,
Sure. Um, you could say that like the crystals in your being are activated by this, like the codes coming in, light codes coming in, and that is like in turn you're like almost holographically projecting that being into your bedroom. Like it's all from within
yeah, yeah,
ultimately. That's the
yeah.
like, I'm gonna say deep end of the pool to play, but a lot of us start in the field of like, oh, a Syrian is coming to visit me, or like an Arcturian is coming.
Yeah.
It's all you and us. It's just like turning on these different strands of DNA, if
Yeah.
you will, or different codes of like
Fascinating.
you, like separating. It's, you know, the Vedas are rich with this too, of like the separation of like how does the all-knowing know itself. It's like it spins off a creation to mirror image and to look at
Yeah.
itself.
So essentially, when you talk about the stars are rebroadcasting, we're kind of doing the same thing, right?
Absolutely.
So it comes in, you broadcast it, hologram is created, and there it is. So
So there's,
yeah.
you know, the two predominant streams, if you will, or
Hmm.
energies are either coming in or broadcasting back out. So
Yeah.
the Merkaba is the two, one of them's, you know, yin or yang or feminine or masculine. And one has the receptive quality of pulling in from the universe to the earth plane, to this body, to this moment, to this time. And the other one is taking from the earth and up and out and broadcasting up and out. And it's that those two energies are, they call the, in the chakra column, they're the involution current or the evolution current. Like you're either moving up or down, but you're doing all of it simultaneously.
Wow. Far out. Uh, we had a couple of questions, but
Okay.
I can save them if you want to keep going.
No, I can, questions are good.
Okay.
You know, if I
Well,
can see them.
one of them is not in this. It could be related, but thanks, Jane Thomas. It's, can you tell us about auras around living things? Do you know anything about that?
Auras?
Yeah, I say auras because I'm
A-U-R.
from Texas. I
Yeah,
say
R's.
oil. I say oil. I don't say oil. I say oil. Morgan gives me shift on that all the time. What'd you say? Orange. Orange. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, aura. Aura.
Yeah, yeah. Sure. It's the aura is the energy field around a being.
Okay.
And there are different, so this is another thing. Oh, this is good. This goes to a good point. One of the things too about the seven sisters and the sevenness of it is there are, and I talk a lot about the yoga thing because that's where I'm trained. And I know a lot of people maybe watching this know that commonality too. Is they talk about the koshas or the sheaths of the energy body. So there's the densest sheath, which is like the physical, and then it moves out to the emotional body and the mental body and the astral body, the causal body. Is as you get out into the different like rings of existence, there's subtler and subtler dimensions of being.
Mm-hmm.
So the light body is like one of those more subtler realms, and on and on. You know, it's like it's a little bit like when people use the dimensions, the densities, bandwidths. So the aura is a field of energy that interpenetrates the physical form and surrounds the body.
Yeah.
And different cultures say, you know, different things about it, but you can get your energy flowing. It's kind of like you know, your light bulb can be 25 watt, 20, you know, 100 watt or 400 watt. The more electricity you're pumping through your central channel, the brighter your light bulb shines.
Yeah.
And the auras too are the electromagnetic field. But the aura, it's particular, like some people have very specific definitions of the aura as one of those bandwidths.
Yeah.
That,
I get that.
I don't know if that answers your questions at all, but
no, that's a good answer. All your answers are great. What are you talking about?
but
Pamela
it's like
Sharp, thank you. says, "What's an emerald green glowing ball of light passing through the atmosphere? What does that mean? I saw it twice already here on Vancouver Island." Does that
Oh,
ring a
I
bell?
just saw her. Yeah, there's been a few. I'm not sure if this is what she saw, but there's been a few comets or meteorites that have
Mm,
come through that have been green, and the green hue is as the comet. Yeah, it's like really a plasma cloud, like light coated. As they get closer and closer to the sun, often they'll, exhibit more tail and more. We can
mm-hmm,
see them more.
mm.
But there's been a few fireballs that were green. Just
Is
like
that
there's
right?
space debris that
Mm,
either interact with the sun's magnetosphere or the
mm.
Earth's magnetosphere or atmosphere,
Man, you go deep.
and they
You're like,
burn
I mean,
up.
you studied your ass off for and connected for years and years. It's obvious. I saw one of those one time back in like 5 years ago, and I was on a spirit walk, and I thought, well, it was a meteorite, or but the thing was is it didn't go like that. It actually was flying like almost like a low flying plane or something. It wasn't that high up in the air, but it was big. It was a fireball, and it went like that, and then it kind of went like that, and then came down, and then so it wasn't like falling vertically.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, or
So
diagonal.
that's like, so light ships are a thing. If we're going to talk about birth and Sasquatches, we can talk about light ships being real. There
What?
are,
Talk to us. Tell us about it.
yeah,
Light
light
ships.
ships and, they're, so I gave you
Now,
the
was that?
answer
Do you
of
think now what I
whoever you
saw?
think whoever you
Yeah,
think is really just you,
yeah,
but it's like star family and visit, like they
yeah.
come, they visit, the ships are
Well,
here,
okay,
it's
so
real.
yeah, this is good. Oh my God, I just had remembered too. So this happened at the same time, right? Like within the same, say, 4 or 5 days, right? So, but my first question would be that light ship, because that makes sense to me. Uh, is that a Merkaba? A Merkaba?
This is one of the questions I've had for
Mm.
a long time, like, so is a light ship like a group body Merkaba?
Yeah, like a group.
Yeah, like
So,
some, I think
yeah.
some races, interdimensional or interstar
Mm-hmm,
races have actual physical vessels, like ships that are made out of metal
mm-hmm.
and whatnot. But there are some that travel in light. It just, they don't need that
So like
anymore.
an energy complex, basically.
Yeah,
Everybody, because there have you. I've read quite a bit on. They'll find a ship, and the ship is like organic. Like
right.
there's no controls. That you just go in, and there's a connection between the pilot and the. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't know if that's all true.
yeah. No, that's. But I think, like, are some of these light ships a group or a collective that have, because the a group energy body is a thing. Like anyone who teaches meditation class or yoga class or spiritual based class
Mm-hmm.
knows that that's a thing, right? And so you're really teaching to the group body when you
Yeah.
have a group of people, as
Yes.
a healer would do an individual
Yeah.
energy body.
Yeah.
But is the light ship a group
Yeah.
Merkaba? I
Yeah.
I I
I
think some
mean,
of them are.
that
This
seems
is
that.
interesting. Going back to my little weird childhood, I think I
Mm,
was 12 or 13 when Contact came out. The Carl Sagan
yes.
book, and then the movie Jodie
Yeah.
Foster. And I just
Yeah.
remember like reading all that stuff back then. And I said, maybe to my mom, or I don't know who would listen to me talk about this stuff. And I was like, the SETI project. And I was
Yes.
like, they're looking all wrong. Like they're looking for other humanoids. And like they're gonna be like a whole different, they're not gonna be carbon based. They're gonna be like, ammonia based, or they're gonna be like, they're just looking for us out there, but they're doing it all wrong.
You're 12 years old talking to your mom about this stuff.
I don't think my mom,
Yeah, I'm just
sadly, my
messing with
mom was a single mom and worked really
So,
hard to like raise us. I
so,
don't think she had time to talk to me about this, but
you mentioned something about the Star family, like coming to, or sometimes you see him, or whatever you said. There's some
yeah.
maybe possibly a connection there. So in that time, it was in the original studio, and I had rented a townhouse, and I had my two younger daughters with me. So this daughter that was with me is like 12 years old, and she's always been kind of connected. Like I'm not more than kind of connected. I mean, like, so what happened was there was a bunch of activity in the house. I called a friend of mine. We Some crazy stuff happened. We removed this black goo from my daughter's back. her deceased mother came in, my daughter's, my ex-wife, and my friend from Germany, and my ex-wife that's deceased, and my daughter. I watched them dancing around this the physical body of my daughter, right? So that happened. And then I had tried to, because there were some other energies in there. That I live next to a cemetery, and so there was this whole. But then what happened was, the next 2 days later, my daughter gets up and goes, "Dad," she was on the second floor. She's like, "Dad, there was a spaceship outside my window." I'm like, "Okay." Like, I'm still not even into I hadn't met Morgan yet, so I didn't even know what an alien was, right? And so so that night, so that was 2 days later. That night we decided to walk up to the store. I didn't have a car, so we would walk. So it was just about dusk. It was still pretty light out, but you could have a little bit of darkness in the sky. And we both walk out, and there was a ball, and it was in the same place. Now I'm thinking about it. It was in the same area that I saw that fireball, and there was like a yellowish white golden light. And she's like, "What is that?" And as soon as she said, "What is that?" it broke into two parts. One was red, one was green. It went like that, came down, and they went together, and then boom, and they were gone. So
Confirmation.
now in retrospect, I think, with what was happening at the time, that was family, really, I guess, right? I don't
Yeah.
know, but this is
They're definitely
fascinating.
making themselves more and more visible and
Yeah.
more prevalent. Like somewhere in the Massachusetts has been on quiet time, on timeout for a while. But I was like somewhere in the middle of February or March, whatever month it was. I was like, oh, that's what's happening. Like we're all home and still so that
Yeah.
we can get more contact
Do you
this
see
way.
that? Speaking of fireballs and merkabas, you're familiar with Victoria Lillenquist, right? She's been on the
Not
show.
really. Just I mean,
Oh, well,
I
she's been on
have,
the. Okay, she's been on the
yeah, but I
show
haven't had a
five
chance.
times probably, and she's
Okay.
got videos, and she's done a movie, and we're talking 1990s and early 2000s. Well, her story is, but she's got a huge story. I mean, it's like all kinds of stories in it. But she started to like go into her backyard, and this spinning wheel would appear, like Ezekiel, and that's who it was. It started talking to her, and this has gone on for years and years and years. And she, to your point about making themselves more visible. Now, Victoria has been out there, and I don't mean out there in a bad way. I just mean she's been putting this stuff out there, and I'm sure she's been called many things, right? She wrote a post 3 or 4 days ago, and she said 2 weeks ago, I think it was May 13th, she said Ezekiel came into her room and took a physical presence. You know, I don't doubt. I respect everybody's reality, but because I know that what we're seeing and experiencing is actually energy. We're just happen to see it, with these senses.
Right.
But so yeah, I think you're right. I think it is happening.
And like
There's
for
another.
me, the questions I've had a few questions after Hung and I got to talk about the Sasquatch, and like for me that they're we exchanged about this, you and I, on private
Mhm.
messenger after my last show, about the Orion and the giants, and like to me it's like Sasquatch is really more like Orion energy,
Yeah.
like their star family here too, and like I had one just in my own head theory of that maybe like the first time they came here to visit, they came at a time where maybe Neanderthal man was around, or like the
Hmm.
whole ape like physical
So they
being.
took. Yeah.
So they taking that form because that's what they're
Okay,
kind
I
of used
see.
to.
Well, who is? Well, we had Kelly and
Yeah,
what's
and
her husband's
Kwani,
name?
Kwani,
Yeah, Kawani and
Kwani.
Kelly. We had them on a couple times.
Yeah,
That other friend of theirs, I can't remember his name.
Sunbow,
Yes, Sunbow.
Sunbow.
So
Yeah,
they were talking. They're like Sasquatch experts,
right.
and they were saying that first of all, that they're interdimensional beings, and second of all, that they were the first. That's why they're called the elders, because they were the first humanoid on the planet. Like, and I know that gets kind of confusing because you've got galactic and you've got energetic and you've got physical,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I really, when I think of Sasquatch, and I have connected probably 4 or 5 times, with them at different times, I get a really good feeling, almost like the love of like dragon energy. It's just a really, really warm energy.
It has like a mama bear,
Hmm.
cozy, like here to take care of you. They really like working with children of
Yeah,
all
yeah.
dimensions, and yeah.
Here's
So
another. Here's another question
yeah.
for you. Thank you, Kazi. Recently, I have learned how to activate my Merkaba field. Can you please tell how to time travel, or how can I galactically travel with the Merkaba? Hmm. You want to try that one?
We
I
got
don't.
3 minutes left of the show. It's good.
No, no, we can go over a little bit. I'm
No, just teasing.
unless
That's
you
like,
got to go. Do you have to go?
no, I don't. Please don't make me go back to my children.
Yeah.
Let me stay here and talk to you
No,
forever, Todd.
I know,
Um,
man. Morgan and I look at each other all the time. You know, we've raised 8 between us, and we're like,
yeah.
it's in the middle of intense activations. We'll be just look at each other and go, "Thank God we don't have any children." How do y'all do it? I don't know.
It's a thing. We're
Yeah,
anyway. So what was the question of like how to time travel
yeah. How do
and
you? How do
how to
you?
turn on the
Yeah.
macabre? Or she said she's already done that. How do you use
See.
it?
Yeah. I
It's
mean,
just
because
awareness, like taking your vehicle and driving it. It's
yeah,
practice.
it's like imagination, isn't it? But
Yeah, or it's self trust is the biggest thing. Like in
yeah,
all this stuff, because it's
yeah.
all like we have these mystical, elating,
Mm,
downloady experiences for any of us, right? And it's like that just happened. Like is
yeah.
that am I just going? Am I just
Kick
really
the
lost it
doubts out.
now, or is
Kick
that
the
like
doubts out on their ass. Yeah, because that you're right.
um
That's the only thing that stops us.
yeah, it's just like you if you have your macabre turn on to the woman who asked this question, or the woman that like you can direct it anywhere you want to go, and like I'd be glad to talk to her more individually. It's kind of a big like topic, but it's yeah, I don't think like it's like you when you learn how to drive a car, like
Mm,
sometimes you don't know the ways, or you're looking at
yeah.
maps, or just practice and like think of somewhere, like if you have a place. For me it happens almost more organically, like it'll happen it's in sleep time, or it
Now,
happens.
do you see your Merkaba? Do you actually see it? Are you
I'm
in
not, no, I'm
in
more of like
it?
a sensor,
Yeah. Okay.
like I'm
That's
more of
see.
kinesthetic.
I'd love to. I guess we're doing it, but I mean, I'd love to. This is kind of inspired by you and the comments you made about the birthing the light codes with Hung, because I this thing went off in my head as I'm seeing all this alignment happening with Solji, to have conversations about these things, and instead of getting caught up in all the scientific, not but bring it in, don't get me wrong, and but to mix it with, what does that look like, what does that feel like I'm glad you said that, because I've only seen my Merkaba one time, and I was on ayahuasca, which I did by myself, which I would never recommend to anybody to do that. Don't do it by yourself. But the thing that happened on that experience was I saw it. I actually saw it, and I saw what looked like 12, I guess 12 aspects of me in it. I don't know how to explain it, but I saw it very clearly, and I got it here. But I have first not even knowing what I was doing, and then later when I started to have a relationship with an energy, magician or whatever you want to call her, I started to realize, oh, that's what you were doing. So it is really, it's that imagination that, like you said, like riding a bike or driving a car, you kind of got to get on it and go, get on it and go. And then I love what you said too about that self um, trust, because the only thing that stops this stuff is that
Hmm.
nothing comes in and goes, oh, you can't go any further.
Right.
It's just this voice that goes, what are you doing? You're stupid. You're crazy. It's your imagination, all that.
But to answer more practical, like I would say like take explorations or take forays, like there's a new patch of woods here in my town that you're like, okay, we're gonna go, like, should we look at the map and
Mm,
figure out where the trails go, or do we just like go on a trail and like check it out and like learn it kinesthetically? So it's really each individual's choice, and I think each individual looks, it looks and feels, and like it's a very personal thing
mm,
of how you do it. But you could practice, or you could make set intentions,
Yeah.
A lot of times people have a lot easier time to do it either in a deep meditation state or in sleep state.
Mm.
So I guess the short advice would be to like set your intention at night.
Yeah.
You can even make like a crystal grid if you're someone who plays with Andaras, like a lot of us do.
Mm.
Andaras have been massively helpful to me for all this. Like they are encoded with star knowledge for sure.
Wow.
And
Wow.
that, you know, maybe if this person doesn't have one yet, that could be an
It's
option, or like find one.
by the way, he
Oh, sorry.
no, it was my fault. But it's a beautiful name, Kazi Riasat Alv. But he says, and he's from Bangladesh. So welcome,
Ozzy,
Bangladesh. He says, I'm male, not female. Happy face.
sorry.
I did that with a YouTube video in the early Soldier One Studios. I mean, early, where I was actually doing YouTube. And somebody wrote, she became a very good friend of mine, but she was in India, and she wrote me a comment, said, can you do a video on such and such? So the whole video, I kept calling her brother. And then she sent me a note in her picture that's a woman. I'm like, oh my God. You know? But,
Well, so I want to say one more thing about the Merkaba stuff. There is a lot of literature or guided visualizations. Like there's a lot of that stuff out there. And for me, this is just my own personal way. Like I've shied away from a lot of that because I don't want to get into these rituals, or like there's a whole like of like you have to do this A plus B and this and that, like make it more formulaic. It can be really organic and self-guided.
That's what I do. That's what I've always done.
The most fun way. But it is like maybe not the beginner way, but it's like the most fun and the most potent and the most personal way to do it.
I usually just what I usually do is I go straight through the roof, and I'm, you know, above the house, and I'm looking, you know, like X-ray vision, like I'm looking through the ceiling, and I'm watching my physical body. And then I turn, and a lot of times I'll get around the globe, but it's dark, it's night, but I'll get around the globe because I don't know, or like I can see the continents, I can see the states, I can see whatever I want, like being in a plane.
So you're a remote viewer. Not all of us have that skill set. Not everyone sees it.
I didn't know that's what it was, to be honest with you. But so I will go like, well, you know what? I guess so, because but in the early days when I would just coming in all this, I'd go and I'd tell somebody, hey, there's a lamp over here, and you know, and then it's a funny story too, because when Morgan came the first time, she stayed for 10 weeks, right? And right before she left, we went and got each other crystals, and she got me this badass wand. It was incredible, and she christened it. And I mean, so when she left, of course my heart was broken. So I would take that damn thing and I would put it against my heart, and then I would go up the roof, go to South Australia, and go into her room. And I knew the room like the back of my hand. This went on for about 3 weeks. And then one day she wrote me, or she called me, and she said, stop doing that. Like, you got to stop doing it. I had to put it up. It's amazing. But I never thought about that. But
yeah, because so just say this for other people listening, like not everyone has that ability to see details in a room when they travel. Like everybody kind of like whichever clair comes with you. Like some people are more auditory, some people have more sense, or inner vision, you know, smells. But just like so people don't think they're doing it wrong if they can't see the room.
I don't think there is a wrong, is there?
No, there isn't a wrong. I'm just like pointing it out.
Yeah. Because then the other thing would be like, so I guess for me, now that I'm talking to you, I guess, so what people call remote viewing, what you're calling remote viewing, it would be when I do that, there's intention. Like I have an intention, I'm going to go over here and check this out. Right. But when I guess what people might call astral, it's kind of mostly just organic, and it just kind of takes me where it takes me. But sometimes I'll have an intention. Like if I want to go to Aldebaran, you know, I've done that. I'll just go and I'm there, right? And then things start happening. Yeah. See, I think these would be great subjects to talk about, but because I watch a lot of videos, I don't watch the whole things, but I'll go to see what people are doing, I just that's how I gather information,
Mhm.
not like intellectual data, but just energetic data, like
Yeah.
nuances and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I haven't seen that. I haven't seen what I saw in the conversation that you had with Hung, and like even what you're talking about now, like the way you're breaking it down to the human, because it's like, okay, put your eyes up in your head, take a deep breath, count to 4, blow out to 8, purse your lips, you know,
Yeah. Right.
visualize
Yeah.
this, visualize, and so I'm like, okay, what is that? How does that feel? What do you see? You know, do you have doubts come in? What happens when you do? Like that. I
Yeah.
think this is important.
Yeah.
Just
Because
like
the
what.
truth of it is that other stuff is like security blankets or like
Mm,
security measures like that
mm,
someone else gives to you, and
mm,
it like the trail of breadcrumbs through the woods to follow
yeah,
the trail. It's good. Some those are helpful, especially when
yeah,
you're starting out on the journey.
yeah,
But if you
yeah,
want to move into a more self-empowered
yeah,
method,
yeah.
because then those
Well,
become
yeah,
like they
that's a
become
good point.
neuroses almost. Like, oh, I have to do this
Yeah,
to turn my Merkaba on, or like for a lot of like you practice at the beginning, but then it just becomes organic. It becomes second
yeah,
nature or first nature.
yeah.
It's like this traveling happens. Um, but it would be cool to, like you were talking about, it's like almost like study groups, right? As
Yeah,
opposed
well,
to
I
like
mean, like
lectures,
real,
like
real,
practical.
real like okay, like real conversations that take into account the human. Because you just brought up a great point. So it's we want to move into a space of self empowerment. So much of these things have been so taboo, and you're nuts in that group, and you that people look at other people like I look at you, and I can say she has done her homework, but she's connected. Now you're talking to your mom at 4 years old, 12 years old, you're talking about these things, like, so this was something that's like a part of you. I get that. I don't have that. That's not my role, but I don't sit here with you and go, oh, I can't do that. you know Now we have that mentality to include bilocation, remote viewing, you know astral traveling. So I think it would be, yeah, I think that part of that frequency, the human frequency, is kind of left out of these instructions and all that stuff. And I'll give you an example. So years ago, like in my 20s, I had two Kundalini experiences, right? And I had no idea. I mean, I was reading a lot of stuff, but I didn't get that. But what would happen was I developed this meditation. And so when I would lay down at night, I would go through this particular forest onto a beach in front of a hut. I'd lay on the sand, and Jesus would come, right? And we'd start talking. He told me his regular name, and we just would talk, right? So years later, when I had the wake up moment, and it came in the trees like a big starburst, I realized, like, after, no, it took me a while, but I realized later that that was all planted in those exercises that I was doing, which really wasn't, it was much more than a meditation. In other words, it was that cookie crumb thing that you're talking about. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? So like things like that, that people might not want to say to other people because they don't want to seem crazy, which, going back to what you said last week, I'm doing this. I wasn't comfortable to come out, not even with my friend, for a while. I'm coming out because there are people that this is happening to all around the world. And I went, boom, that's it right there, you know? So, yeah, maybe that's something, if you guys decide to collaborate, as I suggested or put out
Yeah,
there,
that would be great.
yeah, I mean, I really think that this is needed because there's so much of that. Oh, he can do that or she can do that and I can't. And
Well,
I
it
think,
goes to the the whole paradigm of the dispelling of like the guru model and the
yeah,
teacher leading,
yeah,
all that's like gone
yeah,
now or
yeah,
not. So a lot of people get their feet wet with Reiki. I've
yeah,
never studied that. I've never been called to. I've kind of had a hard no on that for me. But I
yeah,
studied a style of transmission or energy healing. It's called Satnam Rasayan. So it's not, no one's ever heard of it, but it was brought, it's an ancient Sufi practice that is really just like merging. So it's taught in silence. So basically you get with the teacher and it's a pure vibrational thing where it's not instructed. And there's a few human words it's become, but they say for the back in time, it was taught teacher to student like a transmission style. So you'd sit with the master or the person who knew how to do it, and it would be a transmission. So there are 5 different aspects of it. So I learned it through the branch of Kundalini yoga, but I've never been a good follower, nor like, and it could, if like someone tells me to wear all white and wear a turban, I'm going to dress in bright red and purple and like have flowing hair, it's just me. But I would like, but I get to, like all of us do in the United States for sure, like cherry pick what is potent. So from that, I kind of put up with some of the Kundalini yoga bullshit to get to this training style, which is, so the Satnam sign means relaxing into your true identity. And so that it can be done hands off, though I do combine it with like some manual body work. But it's you move into the state of merging. It's a state of oneness.
Yeah.
And then in that state, you are, you're indistinguishable, so that you're in the 0 point, or the shunyata. Shunyata is the nothingness. So like it's a place where everything merges. And that, so for me to have like grown up for the last 20 years in that style, it's very not, it's not dogmatic. It's not, it's not prescriptive. It's like pure space holding and vibrational connection.
I like the silence thing too. We were talking on the first show today with Jason Michael Powers and Heather Grace Powers, and it doesn't matter the story part of it, but that was one of the things, like I think she said, because I said, or just keep your mouth shut, or something like that. She said, yeah, there is so much to be said for the silence, right? And I was thinking about it. I didn't tell her about it, but I was thinking about, like, that's one of the things that Morgan introduced me to. Like, you have an imbalance, or there's friction or whatever you want to call it. And we haven't had to do it since January was the last time. And you just sit down like this, in front of each other, and you just stare right into the eyes. And the last time we did it for like 45 minutes, and it works every time. So it's like, you don't even have to, I know when on my side, I was saying certain things to her, but for the most part, it was just organic, natural, you know what I mean? So,
yeah. So the tricky thing is like that, like we're so surrounded by people that have taken these organic traditions and styles of things that work and then codified them and called them their own. And then I have to teach you this thing. You know what I mean? Like what you were just talking about, like what you and Morgan are doing, by the same gentleman, which I won't name names, but this like famous teacher, he's so good at like grabbing things from other people and calling that like he invented the wheel. Like he called that white tantric yoga. It's like gazing. It's like, it's not your in creation. It's, but instead like that, so we're really at that place of, so it's interesting to me as like a teacher and a sharer, like how do I teach people and empower people without like codifying a system or, but people also want mentoring and they want help. So we're in the new way of doing it, right? Where we just like talk about it and share with each other as equals rather than.
I dig that. And I think in fairness to all of us, we're in a transition. So we're not throwing rocks at the Yogi Guru frequency. This was the template that got us to this point.
Right.
But like, okay, so like Morgan's been doing.
We can't throw a little rock. Can we throw some rock?
Yeah, right. Not anymore. Go ahead. No, we can't do it anymore. No. You want me to do it?
No,
I'll get one of those rock launchers like they use.
Yeah, no, but because I had anyway, I had to cut some threads around all that stuff for myself. That was my 2012 journey.
Yeah, but look,
a lot of people were like waking up. I was like, okay, I need to like get my own. In order.
Well, and this is the gift of it, So the gift of it is now, as you approach your practice, you're consciously wanting to implement this thing in a you want to keep them self-empowered. So you're thinking about it is what I'm saying. So as an example, I was going to say, so Morgan, we went on a radio show. Morgan started getting all these requests for sessions. Like they just came out. I mean, it's like she's been like, nose to the grindstones for 3 weeks. So she started saying what you were talking about earlier when we were talking about the Merkabas and or the fireballs or whatever, the light ships. She said, I think I'd rather do this in a group than do it because it's too draining. It's just too much. And so you were talking about like, how would this look? And that's what I kind of thought, because we talked about it a little bit. And I thought, well, that's really cool. Like a community vibration. So there's some information that's being given out. And by the way, she's going to do this. The first one will be in June. So some information's put out, and then you have feedback. And I think, and I was telling her this the other night, I was like, you know what? I think the most powerful part of this is what you're talking about, Julie, what you did on the show the other night. And that is where people go, hey, can I tell y'all something that happened to me? Because they're not telling anybody. And that's exactly what you said on the show with Hung. You said, I'm doing this because there's other people. And then it was like a slot machine. The comments were like, oh my God, I did this. And oh my God, I did that. But, and it dawned on me at that time, I thought, wow, that's a frequency that needs to be. And that's what I was referring to earlier when I researched other people's videos and platforms, so we're in this transition in this space. And I think people like you having this conscious, now, like, okay, like I don't know what to do exactly, but I'm consciously not going to be the old template. I'm going to take what I got and, and create that silent frequency that brings in,
So the name that I've been longing to do, what you just described, Morgan, a lot of us hopefully will do it, but I was going to call it the Gathering of the Guardians.
Gathering of the Guardians.
Like we're just like a weekly, just like a gathering of people like to interact. And maybe the name, maybe that's too like fanciful of a name, but whatever comes down on it is that, like all of us gathering and sharing. Because what happens is like you tell your story about how the the brotherhood speaks to you, and I'm not going to have that same experience that you had, but you're sparkling to me. I was like, oh yeah, and then like we exchange code really, and we're remembering, and like just by hearing your story empowers me to tell my story in a different way, and like but we all have different pieces of the puzzle to share with each other.
Exactly, that's what I'm talking about, and I see it happen on this show all the time, every time, every day. And it's becoming more fluid. So it's becoming like, okay, well, I had the couple on this morning, the Powers. Then I had this lady with a certain flavor on, and then you come on, but they're all kind of connected, even though the subject matter isn't the same. Yeah. It's weird.
I didn't get to watch talking today, but I watched yesterday Lori Peterson.
Oh, Peterson, yeah.
And then Sherwin, but like she's one of like. Anyway, but just like to watch, I so enjoy watching.
Well, because in the story, right? In the story, it's like I'm still trying to figure out how do you. It's the same thing you're faced with when you said, I don't want to change their. I wanted them to be empowered. I've got something to get in that satsam or whatever you call it. But so that's what I'm talking about. It's like we're not attached to the stories anymore. We all know that. But there's something about the story. At least, well, okay, let me rephrase it. There's something about being able to tell your story without fear, right? Mm-hmm. Like truth comes, to the table 100%, not with any reservations. And I think that's a code exchange that nobody saw coming, but I see it now. I see it every day. Wow, this is cool. So you guys gonna collaborate with?
Yeah.
Are you? Cool.
Yeah, I mean,
We'll need to work some dates out.
I mean, I can't speak for her, but I can speak for her. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're gonna.
So we'll, we'll talk shop later, but we're gonna be able to do some things very soon.
But I enjoyed Lori's show so much yesterday because I was like, oh, she's one of us. We got to she's like Cosmic Mama.
Oh, like,
yeah. I felt the instant resonance with her. Like, even though we don't know each other.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like, with and there's nothing about, hierarchy or, oh, they're okay and they're not okay and all that. but there's something about the people that are making this transition from the old yogi guru template, which is a codependent template, into the new earth template of energy work or practice or whatever your thing is. And their appeal is their humanness, right? I mean, like, sometimes I want to just walk up to a person and go, hey, it's okay, let your human out. You know what I mean? Like, it's okay. You know what I mean? I feel like I want to, like, here we're going to go again, but like the devil, you get a pitchfork and stick it in their ass and say, hey, don't be so uptight. And I do it to myself too. I mean, don't get me wrong.
Oh, I'm coming over.
Did I just insult you? Did I just?
No, I'm here. I walked over to my fridge because I bought this for you this afternoon. I know you can't drink it. Can you see
what
it?
is it?
It says it's beer. It says Mass Soul.
What do you mean I can't drink it?
I mean, I can't like put it through the phone. I mean, you can drink it.
Mass Soul?
That's the name of the beer.
Is it an IPA?
Yeah.
Oh, right on.
But every time I buy it now, I think of you because I told you.
Oh my God, I'm gonna have to take a trip. So Morgan's going to go to Arkansas by plane.
Oh wow.
On the 28th. So that'd be what? And I'm going to take a trip. I'm not sure which direction I'm going to go. But I'm thinking I'm going to go north. I don't know if I go that far though.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking I'm going to go north and yeah, maybe I'll look for that Mass Soul. Look for some of that. Well, I hate to do this to you and send you back to your children.
No. They're beautiful. I've had a break, so.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I know, but I appreciate everything you're doing and that you've been doing for all these years, and the fact that you are that you wear your human proud, because it makes you so effective, and I just want to say that's pretty impressive. I think it is,
Thank you, Todd.
That's my opinion. But
so I do one-on-one sessions with people and groups and such too, and I do have a whole a Pleiadian attunement session that I developed a couple of years ago that seems to come out again this time of year. I have a team of Dharas that work with people.
Wow.
Anyway, just in case anyone has like Pleiadian sparks and wants to work on that.
Can you put the links? I'd put the links on my page.
I would
on the video that's on my page, and then on YouTube as well.
Because thank you for saying the YouTube. I forget that you're
just
a multi-broadcast guy now.
Yeah. Well, and we're fixing to crank that up too.
Thank you for all you do, Todd, and for having this platform for all of us to share. It's really like Soulology has been like a lifeline for me, especially in the last few months. It's been that way for years, but
it's amazing. Every day, every single day, we receive, I would say at least 5 messages. And I don't know these people anymore. I used to know everybody. I mean, if I didn't know their name, I knew their picture, right? Like their energy. But it's so cool because they're like, they have these stories and they're just like, and as far as I'm concerned, I don't care who does it. We all kind of know our role, and I'm just fulfilling the role. I mean, I don't know. There's something that's happening with it, but I think it's also a reflection of what's happening for everybody. So I think we're all getting better, I guess. But the collaborations and the co-creations make it go. So I'm really happy to have you. Yeah. This is going to work. Yeah.
Thanks to Morgan. Thanks to everyone who works hard behind the scenes.
We'll see you. All right. Bye-bye.